looking at it, this capsule, so this area underneath it, like right here, is what structure?
Subcapillary,
Not capillary.
Capsular sinus.
Capsular. Think of capsule, and then
So is that like just like the
capsular.
white stuff right
Like
here?
this, it'll be cells. It might have
Oh,
cells
it'll be cells.
in it.
Okay.
This isn't the best slide for everything,
Okay.
but this space right in here, okay?
Okay.
And here, what is this coming down this way? What's that structure?
septa.
Trabecula.
Trabecula.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your, when we start looking at some other slides, there'll be something that will be called septa. A septa and trabecula are the same thing. Learn what is on your sheet. So if they call it trabecula on the lymph node, then that's what you call it.
You have
Because you'll
trabecular.
have a
It has both.
It has
trabecular.
both.
Okay, the reason it has both, is it in parentheses?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
The reason being is that you'll see septa somewhere else, and essentially it is the same thing.
Okay.
But because you have something else labeled trabecular sinus, it would be best to call it trabecula, which is its real name. Okay?
Which one is the trabecula?
Just it's your connective tissue that divides it into compartments. So what's this structure called?
Cortex follicle.
A nodule.
Primary.
Primary nodule. Okay.
Primary nodule, that's what this is, okay? Because you don't see any light color, right, in the center? So, what would this nodule be called? I mean, this structure be called?
Secondary
Secondary
nodule.
nodule.
Right. Now, name the cells that are within this.
B lymphocyte.
B
Lymphoblast.
lymphoblast.
B lymphoblast. What is this darker colored ring around right here?
The thing that starts with the mantle zone.
Mantle zone. Okay? So, what's this again?
Capsule.
What's this right? Like
So
right there?
capsular sinus.
Subcapsular sinus. And this,
Secondary nodule.
and this,
Germinal center.
germinal center, and what cells is in the germinal center?
B lymphoblast.
What cells are within this structure? What structure is this?
That's the
Mantle
mantle
zone.
zone, and it's the B lymphocytes.
T lymphocyte.
T lymphocytes.
Uh-huh. Okay, so not like there can't be some intermingling, okay? But normally you have, okay,
T's on the
if that's
outside.
secondary, but this other one over here was primary, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's got B lymphocytes, but the one that is the secondary has B lymphoblasts. Okay?
So
So
primary nodules have B lymphocytes. Secondary B lymphoblasts. Okay.
Yes. And then you don't even see the mantle zone, right? Because it's not differentiated because you don't have a lighter colored germinal center, right? Okay. So you're just assuming that your T lymphocytes are sort of around the edge of this. Now, I wouldn't ask you unless I could ask you the mantle zone. Okay. So what is this area called?
The
Cortex.
paracortex.
Paracortex. Because all of this, everything of this is the cortex.
Cortex, and then
Because you have two areas, cortex and
Medulla.
medulla.
Okay.
Could
Now,
you go to the
these,
paracortex one more time?
okay, since I'm right here, real
Yeah.
quick, what is this called right here?
Medullary sinus.
And what is this called?
Medullary cord.
Right, okay. So, that's easy. And they're
Mhm.
both of them within what general area?
Medulla.
Medulla. Okay, so medullary cords, medullary sinus. What cells would you find here in this cord that you expect to find?
Plasma cells.
Almost all of these are plasma cells. You have some lymphocytes that have traveled here, but most of them are plasma cells. What, if you have a plasma cell, what else do you have usually that has presented itself?
Macrophage.
Macrophages. You also have reticular cells because they're gonna make the fibers that form the little network, correct? So that's mostly what you find. You may find another cell that has roamed in there, but that's mostly what you find. Okay, so we're gonna go up, and we're right here. And your question, Will, was?
The paracortex.
Okay,
Just
it
that-
would be just outside the actual nodule.
Okay.
Mhm. And you're not in the medulla yet, so it's just outside there.
Mhm.
Okay. So I found, and I'm thinking I'm on the right place, where you would find your littoral cells, because a sinus is a big capillary,
Mhm.
and capillaries are lined by endothelial cells. You remember how they sort of stretch out,
Mhm.
and they sort of like bunch up a little bit and stretch out, attached to each other.
Mhm.
And so we would expect, if this is a subcapsular sinus, that somewhere in here we would expect to see endothelial cells. Now, because whoever was doing this, I blame it on Dr. Littoral. Probably wasn't a Dr. Littoral because they don't capitalize it, but if there were a Dr. Littoral and said, hey, this is going to be, I'm going to call it after myself. I'm the first one to notice this. Anyway, there's a special name here. They're called littoral cells instead of endothelial cells, and they may have a little bit different function. They may secrete some kind of product that the other ones don't, but they essentially look like an endothelial cell. Okay, and the way I try to remember them is because you're lining a capillary, and so endothelial cells line it. So those extended cells would be a littoral cell. Now we're going to see that again in another organ that we're going to look at. We'll see littoral cells, they call them that, even though they really are endothelial cells, but they're just calling that because they're in an organ that has to do with the lymphatic system. Okay, so I'm going to go up and hopefully find what I just saw a minute ago. But I sort of moved my microscope. Oh, found it, okay. Okay, let's see. Do you see these, and I would have it on oil, but you see these elongated cells right there?
Mhm.
That, and this is your sinus, right here, the subcapsular sinus. These are cells that are lining it. And now you don't see, because these are nuclei of the cells, right? Correct? Okay, so what happens is, the cytoplasm is extending a little bit further. And when you do a cut, you might not cut, it may be on a little different plane. And so you'll get one here, one way over here. Essentially there would be another couple, okay, and then you could see it just lining. Now if we could look at some different areas, but this was a really good area where I could see two, I'd probably have it on something like this. That's really good, it's dark, and you can see that it's narrow, it's a thin cell that's elongated. Is everybody good with that? So
And what
now
is that?
we've seen everything except
Littoral?
a reticular cell, so that's the littoral cell, you've seen that. You've seen, okay, now let me find, if I can find over here, yeah I can. Okay, so if I go here, we know that this got connective tissue, and that's your trabecula, right? And on the edge of it, you would have a trabecular sinus. It's sort of not as cellular as the other. And you see this is elongated cell? So that's a littoral cell that's lining that trabecular sinus, okay? Now if we were to look, in some areas we'd find more. There's one on this side, and there's one on that side. But if you see something really elongated, okay, not round like all these other ones, but elongated, and that's going to be your littoral cell, okay? Y'all good with that? So trabecula, trabecular sinus, littoral cell right there, correct? Okay. Now, there's supposed to be somewhere in this paracortex, you should be able to see a postcapillary venule. I was telling Maggie that how you identify when you're thinking about a venule, a venule. It doesn't have hardly any muscle around it, and postcapillary wise, it's not muscle. Okay, and most of the time it's lined with the endothelial cells are normally bumped out, but not very much.
Do you want to have my sheet?
Yeah,
Okay.
with your drawing.
Yeah. Here's
Look at my wonderful drawing. That's a joke. Okay, but I did draw. Can you see how we're imagining that these are postcapillary venules?
Mhm.
This one's the postcapillary venule, and this is the regular venule. See how the nucleus of the endothelial cell is just sort of flatter? And this one, see how they poke out almost like a little mountain coming out? That's the postcapillary venule. When it says high endothelial cells, they just mean that the nucleus looks high, taller than the average one. Okay. And what is significant about this, and why, if you were explaining this on your something to put down on your lymph node drawing or whatever, is that what's significant is that they have spaces that enable cells to get out of the lymph. Okay, no, cells to get out of the vascular system, so that when they're in the lymph node, they can have larger cells be able to get out, and they populate this. They sort of tend to populate this paracortex, and when they do, they run through the paracortex, and then the cells come out from that paracortex and then start populating other areas. Or some of the cells may be macrophages that are coming, and they may be coming out to then try to recognize or eat up something or whatever they're doing in this, area. But it's a way to let cells get out of the vascular system, because normally the spaces aren't very big to get out, and so having it constructed this way will allow bigger cells to get out of the system and then stay in the lymph node. Does that make sense to y'all? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to just scan just to see if I see anything real quickly. But first, I can come back to that because it sometimes takes a long time to find that. Is there something you need to look at on your tonsils?